Good day, students, and today we are going to begin our module on summary writing. Summary writing is a very simple and easy process, and we're going to learn about it today. We're going to first learn what is a summary, what is the purpose of a summary, also what are the different steps that it takes in your pre-writing phase, as well as your drafting phase, as well as your revising and your editing phase, so that you can complete your summary and publish your summary. So let's get into our PowerPoint. And our PowerPoint is going to show us everything that we need to know about summary writing so that we can begin attempting our own summaries. So let's go into summary writing. What is a summary? So a summary is the writing or the writing process where we condense a longer piece of text into a shorter version that it captures the main ideas and points. So the purpose of a summary is to provide a concise and clear overview of an original text. Summary should be objective and focus on the most important information. And they're also 1/4 the length of the original. So if we're looking at what is a summary is not meant to be an original piece of text. It's not an original piece of writing that you come up with in your head. In fact, a summary is actually you doing what is called research or literary research, where you have found a piece of writing, you have decided that you're going to read this piece of writing, and you create a summary when you extract only the main ideas and the key points. You may say, well, what is the purpose of having a short version of a long version of the same thing? That's a good question. Have you ever wanted to do some research on a topic and you put it in the computer and Google, and there are lots of articles that show up, and you just don't know which one you should choose? You don't know which one has the exact information you're looking for. You're not quite sure as to what is in this lengthy version of this writing. Well, that short snippet that you usually see under the link is a summary. It summarizes what you would find in the lengthy version. It saves you time in reading and understanding whether the piece that you're selecting is exactly what you're looking for. You may also find a summary in the newspaper. So sometimes in the newspaper, you may see a movie or another link to another article, and you will just see a short section, maybe in bold print, that basically sums up what the entire article is about, or a small paragraph at the bottom of your movie on Netflix that sums up everything that the movie or the series is about or the episode is about. Or if you're a reader like me, you can pick up your book and you can look to the back of the book and you will find a short paragraph basically just rehashing the story of what's in the book. So you can see that we use summaries all the time whenever we are trying to find out whether something is worth our time to invest in the lengthy version. So when you're constructing your summary, you have to bear in mind that I'm not the original author, I'm not the original creator of this, but I must do justice in presenting what this thing is in a short, simple version. Now, summaries has to be objective because we cannot put our own opinions into a summary. Summaries do not include our opinions or our thoughts or our reflections on a subject matter. Summaries simply require that we state who is the author, the title and the piece where we got it from, and the main points and the key points. It's very objective. And it's also 1/4 the length of an original because if we're to look at essay writing, as we have done, and you look at all of the other things that we include, for example, supporting details, examples, persuasive techniques, emotive language, all of these things add words, they add fluff. But with a summary, we're not interested in effecting any sort of emotion, or we're not trying to affect anything other than direct information. So we do not need those extra writing techniques that are used for different effects. Let's continue. So how do we write a summary? The first thing you need to establish is the different stages in the writing process, as I always advise that you use the writing process as your guide. Each step in the writing process will have a set amount of tasks that you must complete so as to not make your writing disjointed, missing information. It just really helps you to organize, categorize, fully brainstorm your information so you know what you're talking about before you actually begin the writing process, which is drafting. So in the pre-writing phase, you are to read the original text carefully to understand the main ideas and the supporting details. This is what we call reading for the gist of the piece, G-I-S-T, the gist. Now, the gist will basically tell us what is the topic, what this essay is about, what type of essay it is, etc. So we read just so that we can know what is the piece of content that we're engaging in. Next, we will identify key points and main arguments presented in the text. Then you will interrogate the extract. Now, when we interrogate the extract, what we mean is we interrogate it. We simply ask questions about the text. So you can analyze the piece to establish categories of information. So I can ask myself, what genre is this? Is it fiction or nonfiction? Right? What is the particular mode? Is it expository, persuasive, report, etc.? What is the form? Is it in paragraph form? And when we know what is the form, we can then look at the structure. So what is the structure? So I see there are paragraphs, and we know all paragraphs must have a thesis statement or a topic sentence. So we begin looking for that thesis statement or that topic sentence. Then we start extracting key points. We can also observe certain things like techniques that are being used. So persuasive techniques will have certain types of structures in there that will help guide us onto what is the main information, whereas an expository piece or a report may have different techniques and devices in there. All of this will help us to understand clearly what is the purpose of the piece of writing, so that when we are constructing our summary, we are not misguided into what was the author's intention behind writing the piece. Next, after we have collected all of this information, we can go back to the piece again, and we can start annotating and organizing information. This is basically highlighting sections that make sense to us, removing sections that we think are repetitive or redundant, selecting short sentences or rephrasing things in short sentences that we want to capture. Next, we can go ahead using our own words to paraphrase information and ensuring that we maintain the original meaning. Now, when I say maintain the original meaning, I don't mean that you have to use back the same words as they exactly mean, because sometimes you will need diction. So diction would be replacing long phrases with a bigger word, right? So for example, people viewing a cricket match, we can say spectators. So sometimes we have to use different words, but when I say the original meaning, do not put inferences, as in do not assume this is what the author meant when he was saying this, or we do not put our own opinions as to whether something is right or wrong. So basically, it simply means putting the original context, the original information, and the original intention in a short version. Next, once we have our sentences, we can then start looking at them, seeing how they merge well together. So we can then start looking at our paraphrasing merging, and grouping. These are all summarizing techniques. So paraphrasing would be saying something in a shortened form in your own words. Merging would be linking information that are alike. And grouping would be looking for things that can be placed in groups. So for example, if there is a list, so if you see Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, we can say, oh, they're talking about the Eastern Caribbean. And we can omit that list, but replace the list with a group name for that thing. So bananas, apples, oranges, we can say fruits, okay? People under the age of 18, we can say youth or teens, okay? So we have to keep the summary concise and avoid including the unnecessary details that the author may have included. Remember, when you're doing your extended pieces, it's more than just a topic sentence and your opinion. There are lots of other things that you have to include to assist the reader in getting the true meaning of what you want. For the summary, that is not our job. And that's not our intention. Our intention is to represent the writer well so that you, the reader, will know whether or not the writer's text is the right text for you for whatever you're looking for. After you're finished doing this, you then merge your sentences together. And when you merge the sentences together, you need things like transition words. You will need to make sure that it is clear and it is coherent and it is fluid. It flows, it's not disjointed. All of these steps is necessary, and you can put them in a nice little checklist so that when you're ready to write, you will not forget any of these steps. And I always advise my students to have a writing checklist. In your pre-writing stage, start putting small little points of what is expected of you for each type of writing, and then proceed in your planning process. So a good summary should accurately reflect the main ideas and the key points of the original text. So here we have a checklist that you can use. The summary is written in a learner's own words. I will look to see whether or not you paraphrase. It does not give the learner's opinion. Make sure that you do not include your opinion. It has a suitable topic sentence. Now, topic sentences for summaries are extremely important because summaries do not have titles. The reason why summaries do not have a clear, definitive title, like all other types of writing. So if I'm supposed to write an essay on expository, if I'm supposed to write a persuasive, you will know the topic. Summaries do not have topics in bold. They do not have titles in bold, underlined, whatever. Instead, what they have is a topic sentence. And the topic sentence establishes the source of the information. So who wrote, what is the source, whether it's an online article, a book, or whatever, whether or not it is expository, persuasive, the form of writing that it is, the author, if the author is stated, or the organization that is responsible for the piece. And then it has a gist, a general summary of what the entire piece is about. So let's say, for example, you find a piece about planting cassava. That's exactly what you will say. It is about planting cassava. As we move on further on in the summary, we can then include the other details. So for your topic sentence, which we will do as we do our examples leading up, you would realize that your topic sentence for summaries are slightly different because the summary topic sentence includes your citation of the original. And the citation simply means who wrote it, what type of writing it is, and where you got it from, okay? The source. The summary does not include unimportant details, so you don't put in things that are not necessary or was not stated in the original, and you leave out the things that are considered unnecessary. And when it comes to the main idea. All of the sentences are complete and they include a subject and a verb. This is just regular grammatical checks. And the summary is an appropriate length. Please remember that I said summaries are 1/4 the length. For CSEC, they generally give you 500, 540 word essays, and 1/4 of that is 120 words. So for CSEC, you will not be required to write a summary that is longer than 120 words. That is not to say that all summaries are 120 words, but you can say a summary of a 500-word article is about 120 words. Okay? So after you have your checklist, you should make sure that your summary is concise and focused. Avoid repeating, avoid having irrelevant details. The summary should be written in your own words using appropriate vocabulary and sentence structures. Now, this is something that you always hear about summaries. Summaries should be written in your own words, but then they're telling you summaries are not yours and they're not reflective of your opinions. Well, what they mean when they say it is written in your own words, it's that you are not lifting. Lifting is the process where you simply take a chunk of a sentence or maybe a whole sentence from the original text and simply place it as a sentence in your summary. Those are not your own words. It is not your own expression. It is not your own understanding of the text. It is literally citing. And that cut and paste sort of practice, it makes you lose marks. It's not that we do not value the words that are used in the original, because obviously you're going to have to reuse certain words. There are just some words like keywords that you have to reuse. So in the example, how to plant cassava, what word can you use to replace cassava? Manioc? It's still cassava. If you're going to reuse the word plant, what are you going to say? Cultivate. So you're just going to go through looking for synonyms of words. Makes no sense. That's not what they mean when they say written in your own words. Written in your own words means that the sentences that you're using in the summary have been crafted in your own mind using the information of the original text as your guide. There are going to be some words that are repeated. However, very rarely would you find an entire sentence being expressed in the same exact manner, verbatim, as found in the original. I'm not saying that there are not times when large chunks of sentences may not be reused. However, the lifting, which is the cut and the paste, I cut from the original and I paste it into my summary. That practice is what we call lifting, and it is not advised. So when they say use your own words, they mean use your own expression as you are writing these sentences. Use appropriate vocabulary. Again, if you have to merge or you have to paraphrase or you have to group anything, use the appropriate vocabulary and try not to be so wordy and redundant. Here is another checklist that you can use. It should maintain the overall structure and organization of the original text. So originally, when I explained that when we're reading to understand the structure and the organization. The structure is, if it is a persuasive piece and they have the points listed A, B, and C, in your organization of the summary, you should develop the points A, B, and C. It should reflect the process as we go through. So if I'm going through my original piece and the first point that is mentioned is A, in my summary, as I am presenting the paraphrase, the points, I will present the point A first, followed by B, followed by C. The organization, etc., the tone, everything must be maintained. So if I'm writing a persuasive piece on why people should use recyclable items in their kitchen, and the author in the original piece is very condemning of individuals who waste or use a lot of plastic or does not consider their carbon footprint. In the summary, I am not to try to smooth over. I am not supposed to try to be diplomatic in how I present the information. I can maintain the tone without injecting my own ridicule or my own condescension. I can maintain the same tone and mood as was presented by the original author in the original piece. It is not my job to change that. So the structure and the organization of the original text must be maintained. Avoid personal opinions or biases in the summary. So like I said, if you're not fond of what was said in the original, it is not your job to change the tone. So how do we go about writing an effective summary? I've already given you lots of tips on how to write a summary, but let's just look at some more tips. One, don't include your personal opinions and your biases. Two, do not copy things verbatim from the original text without using paraphrasing techniques such as rephrasing, merging, grouping, etc. Including irrelevant details or information that is not mentioned in the original text is highly frowned upon. Even if you know from research or from updated information that this information presented in the text may not be true, or it may be skewed, or it may be biased, it is not your job to correct it. Because if you correct it and somebody reads the summary, they may assume that the original text is reflective of this information, which may not be the case. So whatever your assessment of the piece is, maybe the piece could need some improvement to you. But for the individual who is reading your summary and looking for the exact information that you're presenting, they will not find it in the piece that is the original. So you would misrepresent the summary and the author and his opinions, and that is illegal. So make sure you capture the key points and the main ideas of the original text, and make sure that it is 1/4 the length. If it goes over 1/4 the length of the original piece that you have read, then you have included too much irrelevant details. So what is the importance of summary writing in our day-to-day lives? Summary writing helps us to improve our reading comprehension by requiring a deeper understanding of the text. If you can read a text and you can fully understand what it says to the point where you can recapitulate what was stated in 25% of the words, it means that your understanding goes beyond the superficial. It means that you can explain, you can give more information if required, because you have thought deeply on what you think is the author's intention and purpose in writing the original piece. So when you develop your summary skills, what you do is basically create in your mind your own database, your own bank. Everything that you read, everything that you view, everything that you listen, you are able in your own brain to create very small pockets of summaries of the original. So even if you're on a job where you're not required to do a summary, and I don't know what job that would be, because every job you will have to read information and then make it concise, especially if you're in an office job and research and data collection is a major part of what your job description is. You're going to have to develop excellent summary skills. Even if you are developing a business plan, even if you're an entrepreneur and you're just you just want to get things out of the way and you don't have time to do all of that, at some point in time, you're going to have to summarize some part of your operations, etc. So when you have apt summary skills, it allows you in your brain to be more effective because you create a database of more concise information. It helps you to create those links, etc. It allows for effective note-taking and information retention. So for those of you who are struggling with taking notes, you rely on the teacher's every word as the teacher speaks to write your notes. You're studying and you have to write out essays, lengthy sentences on your flashcards so that you can remember. Summary writing or developing summarizing skills helps you to take more effective notes and to retain information better because you don't have to retain information in the large bulk. Think of summaries as a zip file or a raw file where the information on the file has been compressed and it saves a lot of space and storage. So summary writing does that for original text, but it also does that for the individual in their own development. Summaries are useful for studying, reviewing, and organizing information. For somebody who likes to engage a lot, who wants to be more knowledgeable on a lot of things, having that ability to compress and sort and organize and store information helps you to have a bank of information, a wealth of information that you can just pull from without having to worry too much about remembering the whole long thing. Professionals often need to summarize complex information for reports, presentations, proposals, etc. So like I said, in your day-to-day job, you're going to have to use summary skills. And summary writing is a valuable skill in academic, professional, and personal contexts. So what are some examples of summary writing? I explained them. You can find them in news articles. So you may just find the top part of an article that's written in bold. That will tell you what the article is about. If you're doing research on the computer, below the link, you will see a small paragraph. Sometimes it is listed as abstract. That's a summary. You can find them on the back of the book. You can find them on your portfolios when you do your SBAs, and you will also find them on your theses when you go on to do your dissertations, and you go on to do your tertiary level assignments. You will have them in your abstract. And you can find them on Netflix or on YouTube in the content, the description section. They would usually have a summary of what everything is about in that content section. So practice activities for summary writing. How you go about doing this, you will read a short article and then write a summary in your own words. However, I really like to tell people to start off summary writing by journaling. I always advise my students to journal. Summarize what happened in your day. And as you learn to summarize what happens in your day, you become more proficient at being observant. So usually you'll just go about your day, you'll dress, you'll go to school, you'll come back from school, and that'll be fine. But when you're trying to develop your summary writing skills, you know that you have a short space of time, a short amount of words to explain everything that happened in the long process of the day. So challenge yourself. How can I express everything that happened in my day in 5 sentences or 6 sentences? It helps you to be reflective. Journaling is always very good for documenting your life because it basically creates like your own movie or your own biography. It helps you to keep track of yourself and see yourself outside of yourself. Because when we write down things about ourselves, we are more reflective, we're more introspective. So we look at ourselves from inside and then we look at ourselves from outside. So how can I capture this image of me doing this thing in my body? So it allows us to come out of ourselves a little. So I love to engage students firstly on writing journals, maybe just 5 sentences for the week, or sometimes I'll tell them write a summary about their previous school term and see how they are, how they go about putting the main details and the key points of their life on paper. But you can read articles, you can watch a video or listen to podcasts and summarize the main points. I do this all the time. When I'm reading books, I'll summarize the chapters that I've read. If I'm listening to a podcast, because I love to listen to the those extended narrative podcasts, the extended content, like the 3-hour podcast. I love watching those types of podcasts because I just love being saturated with information. But then I will put in my journal a paragraph of information from a 3-hour podcast. And sometimes it's very challenging. It tends to be lengthy at times, but then I can then go back and see how I can shorten that and always try to keep my summarizing skills on point. You can summarize chapters from books, and then you can compare. So if you have a friend whom you engage information with, like y'all share books, y'all share movies, etc., it will help if you share, as well as note taking. So for those of you who rely heavily on writing word for word everything that the teacher says, you can then write summaries of what the entire note is about, so that you can then use that on your flashcards when you're studying, and you and your friend can exchange these notes afterwards. So you can see what the friend says and what the friend has, and see whether or not your expression and the content matches as well. It will not be identical, but the main points and the gist should be the same. So I'm just gonna do this quick run through of answers, and you can answer them on your own to see if you understand them. And then I will go into the example. Now you may be wondering why I'm not breaking up this class as I would usually break up the class. And that's because I'm trying to get as much information to you so that you can work with it in your own time. Because I find when I put information, 1, 2, 3, sometimes you watch one and you don't watch the others, right? So sometimes I may see everybody viewed the first video, but by the time I get to the third video, okay, so I'm just doing it extended. So what is the purpose of summary writing? Is it to present personal opinions and biases? Is it to expand on the minor details and examples mentioned? Is it to analyze the main ideas and supporting details of the original text? Or is it to provide a concise and clear overview of the original text? If you said number 4, you would have got it correct. Let's look. What should a good summary avoid? So a good summary should avoid irrelevant details or information not mentioned in the original text. Should it avoid complex vocabulary and sentence structures in the summary? Should it avoid focusing only on the minor details and examples mentioned? Or should a good summary avoid including personal opinions and biases in the summary? And you're to circle the correct answer. So what should a good summary avoid? Including irrelevant details or information not mentioned in the original text. I circled the correct answer for it, but I just wanted to show you when it's incorrect that it gives you the correct answer. Okay. What is an important element of a good summary? Maintaining the overall structure of the original text, including personal opinions and biases in the summary, expanding on the main ideas and key points in the original text. What is the correct answer? This one is just P. What should you do before writing a summary? Start writing the summary without any preparation. Read the original text carefully to understand the minor details and examples. Copy everything verbatim from the original text without paraphrasing. Or create an outline or a list of the main ideas and supporting details. Now remember, I said before writing the summary. Okay? You're to create an outline or a list of the main ideas supporting the details. That's your annotating and your pre-writing. What is a summary writing? Why is summary writing important? It is a requirement in academic and professional and personal contexts. It helps to memorize all the minor details and examples for the text. It helps to improve reading comprehension skills by requiring a deep understanding of the context, and it allows for note-taking. So it helps to improve comprehension skills by requiring a deep understanding. So we're going to look at an example. Gotta leave this lesson. Go ahead and I have the link for this. I will leave it in the Google Classroom so that you can go ahead. So let me do a new share. And here we have our example of a summary. Let's see if I can. Make this screen a bit larger. There we go. So here we have, read the following part. This is an actual CSEC example. Okay, it's a CSEC example. Read the following passage, then write a summary of it in not more than 120 words. If this limit is exceeded, only the first 120 words in your answer will be read and assessed. As far as possible, use your own words. And your summary must be in continuous prose. Continuous prose means one paragraph. There are times when you may have to split summaries. That's if you're looking at maybe different chapters and so on. But for CSEC 120 words, we stick to the one paragraph. In your answer, you will be assessed on how well you identify the main ideas and opinions in the extract, how well you organize and express these ideas and opinions in your own words, and how well you use grammar, sentence structure, vocabulary, spelling, punctuation. So what I'm gonna do, I am gonna go through the annotation process with you. Navigating social networks. Online social networking enables individuals to connect with family and friends, play games, and express themselves. It is the last element that tends to get users of social networking tangled up. Posts on sites like Facebook have the potential to reach a vast audience in a short time. It is one thing to have an opinion, but it's something else to share it with the world, especially in a permanent format. As more and more students and educators join social networks, the lines between individual rights and school rules become blurred. Behavior on social network can affect not only students, but also teachers. Most teachers understand that they are considered role models and will be held at a high standard of professional and personal conduct. Even when teachers' social networking sites are not available to students, comments on sites that are perceived as inappropriate can be problematic for these teachers. Unfortunately, the news is full of stories of teachers who seem to forget that there is no such thing as privacy online. For example, a New Jersey teacher was dismissed after posting on Facebook, "I am not a teacher, I am a warden for future criminals." When teachers use social networking to vent, they're no longer talking to close friends. They're potentially sharing their thoughts with a billion other people. In one case that went to court in the United States, a college senior was dismissed from her student teaching assignment because of a post on social network sites. In these posts, she included negative comments about her supervisor and pictures of herself drinking. There are still many questions about the rights of both students and teachers in the world of social media. In the meantime, teachers appear to be held at a higher standard, and they should be aware that comments they make on social networking sites make them vulnerable to charges of unprofessional conduct. The world of technology has blurred the lines of individual rights and school rules. It is a matter of time before the US Supreme Court steps in and gives more solid rules to follow. Until then, educators need to think of their social networking as an extension of who they are in the classroom and to navigate with care as they venture into the world. And this is from CSEC examination, I think it was 2019. Below here, I'll highlight it for you. This information is also very important. Please, when you are in the examination, be sure to look for this little section below here with the italics. You would realize that from this, it has the title, adapted from Deanna Hamblin and Marilyn Bartlett, Navigating Social Networks, and it says In Educational Leadership, Volume 7, Number 6, March 3rd, 2013. Volumes number 7, 6th of March, 2013, page 25. Why is this information important? Because this is where you will get your topic sentence. So your first bit of information that you need to include is this, right? So navigating social networks is the title of the piece. So navigating social networks, written by Deanna Hamblin and Marilyn Bartlett, right, is an expository piece from the journal or from the magazine or from the professional journal, Educational Leadership. How do we know it's a magazine or a quarterly or whatever? Because it says volume 7, volume number 7. Had it given a website, we would know that it was an online site, etc. Now, why is this information important? If you're writing a summary and somebody just sees a paragraph, how would they know where to find the original if the original is important to them? It is in creating your topic sentence where we are able to source the information using the citation that you have given. So it's like advertising the original. So the first thing that you would have to create, therefore, would be your topic sentence, which is Navigating Social Networks by Deanna Hamblin and Marilyn Bartlett from the periodical Education and Leadership, discusses the issue with both teachers and students being judged or being penalized from their use of social networking sites. And that would basically summarize what this entire thing is about. How do we know it's an expository? How do we know it is not fiction? It is not fiction because it includes things like definitions. If we look at our first sentence, online social networking sites connect us with friends or family. This is a statement of fact. It is giving you a definition of what the social networking site is. What types of essays usually begin with definitions? It's usually informative pieces. This piece is trying to inform us. However, the nature of the information we will then look to see, right? It is the last element that tends to get users on social network tangled up, right? So when you hear the word tangled up, you don't need to use the word tangled up. You can just say incriminate. You know, it can get you in trouble. It can have negative effects or it can have dire consequences. You don't need to use the word tangled up. That is an example of not using your own words, but at the same time, not switching what the content is conveying. Posts on sites such as Facebook have the potential to reach a vast audience in a short time. Now, you don't need to mention Facebook because Facebook is an example of a social networking site. Simply putting, social networking site has the ability to reach a vast audience, this is sufficient. So let's say, for example, I'm annotating. Let me go ahead and annotate. What is social media used for? To connect with family and friends, right? Now, when you say connect with family and friends, we can say communicate. That would be an example of using a big word for a long phrase. So instead of saying connect with family and friends, we can say communicate, play games and express themselves, entertain. So we can say social networking in others. Social networking enables communication and entertainment with a vast audience in a short time. It is one thing to have an opinion, but it's something else to share it with the world. Something, especially in a permanent format, right? Especially in a permanent format, right? So here we have permanent format. As more and more students and educators, so we have students and educators, the lines between rights and school rules become blurred. So based on what I have annotated from this first paragraph, here's what I have gathered. Social networking sites allow us to communicate and entertain ourselves with and engage with a vast audience in a short space of time. However, the information placed on social media sites, both by students and educators, are in a permanent format, and it has caused issues where rights and schools are concerned. That's my sentence for my first paragraph. So I'll write that down. Behavior on social networks can affect not only students, but also teachers. We already stated that in the beginning. You don't need to state that again. This is where you would see repetition or redundancy. It is important for the writer to repeat, to keep the reader constantly engaged, constantly reminded. But in the summary, you don't need to constantly restate. Most teachers understand they are considered role models. So here we see the word role models. Highlight that and held at a high standard of professional conduct. I really needed the stylus to do this. I'm very sorry that my lines are so untidy. Professionalism and personal conduct. Even when teachers' social networking sites are not available to students, comments on sites that are perceived as inappropriate can be problematic. So, sites not available to students, comments can still be seen as inappropriate and problematic. Now, I want you to establish that although I'm underlining sections, when I create my sentences, please notice that I'm not just taking those underlined sections and putting them together. I am formulating an idea around those underlined parts. Unfortunately, the news is full of stories of teachers who seem to forget there's no such thing as privacy online. We have already stated that it's a permanent format, but we have not mentioned anything about privacy beyond sites not available to students. For example, a New Jersey teacher, blah, 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 do not put that in. We do not include examples that are exhibiting what we have already stated. So for example, let's say an entire paragraph was dedicated to an example. That's different. Clearly, there is much information in that one example. But the mere fact that we have already established that things posted on sites can be deemed inappropriate, this is just an example of an inappropriate comment, and you don't need to include that in the summary. So my next sentence that I will have is, teachers are considered role models and as such are expected to operate under high standards of professionalism and personal conduct. Even when their sites are blocked from students, there's no such thing as privacy. online, as comments can be deemed inappropriate and problematic. So even if you don't post any pictures at all, but you just put comments on there, that's what they're saying is inappropriate. It doesn't have to be the content you post. It could just be your expressions. That is stated. When teachers use social network to vent, they are no longer talking to close friends. So social networking for venting is not a good idea. They're no longer talking to close friends. They're sharing thoughts with billions of other people, right? So if I say you're not talking to close friends, who are you talking to? Billions of other people. In one case that went to court in the United States, a college senior was dismissed. That's also an example. We don't need to include that. In these posts, she included negative comments about her supervisor, not included. What we can say, however, is that we can look at the comments that she included negative comments. So even if the comments were about her supervisor, whatever, we have negative comments and pictures. So basically in this paragraph, it explained that teachers can use social networking sites to vent, share negative comments, or even share pictures of their lives, but they're not sharing them with their friends, they're sharing them with billions of other people. That's all this paragraph is saying. We can move on. There's still many questions about rights. So we have questions about rights for both students and teachers. In the meantime, choosers appear to be held at a higher standard, and they should be aware that the comments they make on social media sites make them vulnerable to charges of unprofessional conduct. So we have already established unprofessional conduct in our third paragraph. We have already established the comments, etc., in our third paragraph. These are just redundancies. And if you look carefully at this paragraph, you realize it's basically summarizing everything that was said in the beginning. The world of technology has blurred the lines of individual rights and school rules. We already spoke about rights and rules. It is a matter of time before the US Supreme Court steps in and gives more solid rules to follow. So this is them providing a forecast, a projection of how they think this is going to be fixed. Until then, educators need to think of their social networking sites as an extension of who they are in the classroom and to navigate with care as they venture into this new world. So the final paragraph is all of these concerns about social media leading to teachers being vulnerable to charges based on their content and their engagement on the networking sites. The rights and the rules which guide students and teachers should be more solid and put forward by maybe the US Supreme Court. And until then, educators need to be wary that their social networking is just an extension of who they are in the classroom, and they should be guided by the professional rules of conduct and navigate with care. So those are the sentences that I would have written down. And I would then merge them together, and I will use my transition words, and I will make sure that they flow smoothly and coherently. I am going to do a class where we're going to sit down and we're going to do this together. So for now, this is just the introductory class. So don't think Miss is just going to leave you hanging. I'm not going to leave you hanging. We're going to go through the class. We're going to write these sentences. You're going to give me feedback on how to merge them more fluently, make them more coherent, make them flow very nicely. And we're going to develop that summarizing ability, because I want to hear what are some of the sentences that you come up with in trying to condense this information. However, as you can see, I have annotated, as in I have underlined, I have circled, I have done so all these fancy things for me to know what are the main ideas of the piece. And so when I am reading the piece now, I don't have to worry what this was saying or what that was saying, because I have already identified the main points and the main ideas. This is what we do in our pre-writing phase. So next class, we will then begin our drafting, where you are the one who's going to engage with me and let me know what are your ideas on the sentences that I have highlighted, or the fragments of the sentences that I have highlighted, and how you're going to use your grammar, sentence structure skills, vocabulary skills, spelling and punctuation skills, as well as your transition words and your individual expression to come up with your own summary before we do the test. So have a good one, and I hope that you understand the information. All of the resources that I have here is available in your Google Classroom. The link to the PowerPoint is available, as well as this extract. You can use it, download it, do your own annotating, create your own summary, and then you can submit it for feedback before we move into the next class. So see you next time for drafting our summary. Thank you for watching this class on the introduction as to what is a summary and our pre-writing phase in the writing process of how we prepare to write a summary. Have a good one, everybody.